Sometimes I dream with open eyes. I dream of falling in love. To be in love must be the sweetest feeling that a girl can feel. To be in love, to live a dream with somebody you care about like no one else. A special man, the dearest man, who needs to share his life with you alone.
Greetings, everybody out there in internet land. Welcome to another awesome interview. You won't believe what we have with us this time. We have Mr. Sean Rogers himself coming to us all the way from Maryland, the state of Maryland, on the east coast of the United States. That's the mid Atlantic. And he's going to be presenting some awesome reviews with us. If you remember, this year we gave out several awards to the Dilectio Sapientiae Award. That's the Dilectio Sapientiae Award. And this is an award which is about the celebration of wisdom or the celebration of idea. And this is it's a rare award. It's only the second year that we've done this, but it goes to people that truly have a unique ability to convey an idea or convince a convincing idea that you cannot push back. You can't push back on it. Okay. Whenever they say this, most people mouth wide open. You're in awe. Um, you're in belief. It's very convincing. And we believe Sean Rogers has achieved that goal. And his video review on Andor, it's called Thesis. Andor is a Star Wars masterpiece from 1978. So he went way back and he connects Andor to one of the greatest science fiction films of all time. And we're not going to bring the whole thing to you. We're not going to, you got to have to watch it yourself. We will share a clip with you and you will have the ability to ask questions. So please do. We will get a response at some point or another. But let's bring them on. And here we go. Sean Rogers, how you doing?
I'm doing quite well, Troy. I appreciate you having me on. A wonderful intro, by the way. I am very humbled. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So, of course, let's run down the routine here.
Sure.
Introduce yourself to everyone and where you're from, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. For those of you who maybe hear me for the first time, hello. It's wonderful to be here. My name is Sean Rogers. I'm from the East Coast, like you said, Maryland. The only person sometimes who seems to be from this state. It's strange how very few people come from Maryland, but that is where I'm currently at. I'm 26 years old, and I currently work as a commentator for a variety of different esports publishers. So I have a bit of familiarity with speaking on camera and stuff, but the passion project of diving into sci-fi and different worlds for YouTube videos has been a recent indulgence of mine for the past couple of years. So I'm still getting my feet wet, still figuring out how to put the sentences together, but it's working sometimes. And I'm just a fan of Star Wars. Okay, it's from birth. I have to blame my father for that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a common theme, that we hear folks that are in the later half of the Star Wars arc that were introduced to Star Wars when they were after many years after it was in the theaters, a long time after that. But they watched it, I guess, on television or something like that, or if you're lucky, went to a Fandango. Not a sponsor drop, but and they saw it, had the opportunity to see it in the big screen, and were introduced. Came in during the first prequels, or during the prequels, which was good. The Phantom Menace I thought was very good, in my opinion. Darth Maul, that's right, Darth Maul. He's an interesting character.
Yeah.
In the franchise. So tell us, a little bit about, why did you make this analysis about Andor? It's Andor. First of all, Andor, as we all know, is a Star Wars series. It's one of the new spin-off series that Disney I guess, pushed Lucasfilm into creating these series.
Yeah.
Prior to that, we had Boba Fett. We had Boba Fett. We had Mandalorians. Had a couple seasons now, about 3 seasons. We had Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we've got the new upcoming Ahsoka series.
Hmm.
There's also been a few other series, some little tiny short clips, visions, and things that have been
Sure.
very nice. But Andor kind of is a bit has deviated a little bit, or should I say, it's a deeper dive, and your
Yeah.
analysis goes into those intricate components that are into crafting not just a film, but in reality, for us, the judges, us that watched your piece, it's almost a step. I would say it's a step in the direction of art house in
Mm.
some capacity
Hmm.
because of the detail of the set design, the detail of the wardrobes, costumes, and so forth, the high
Yep.
quality actors,
Yep.
and story writing. It's something out of the house of masterpiece theater and public broadcasting.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the book called Catalyst?
Yes.
We're going to talk about that. So, tell us a little bit a bit more in detail, why Andor. Go into more of. I don't want to take away your thunder, but
Sure.
tell us why Andor.
I mean, I think it started when Rogue One first came out. I remember seeing it in theaters, and I was incredibly blown away by the perspective of the film and just kind of the way it was presented. It felt at the time like the first time I had that resonance of I'm a child again watching Star Wars from the 70s, whether it was the set design, everything that Andor does was present in Rogue One, and I was really taken aback, and I was much younger when the film came out, but I was really taken aback at the time of how it captured that essence of Star Wars from the early periods, whether it was the method acting, whether it was the set design, the music, the way that perspective is given through Tony Gilroy's presentation, his directing, and the writing of the film was really impressive. And then when Andor was announced, I didn't think too much of it because I think a lot of us share the sentiment of Andor, he's kind of a side character. Like, there's bigger names in the world. Okay, it exists. Cool.
Yeah,
And
his role was somewhat. It appeared to be very secondary in Rogue
yeah,
One, very
yeah,
very secondary. Like basically a supporting character at
exactly.
best. At
Yeah,
best,
because I mean,
and
the movie had it about followed Jyn Erso. It's her story. It's story of Krennic and the Empire. He's just a small part, which was wild.
yes, yes,
But yeah, I mean, when the Andor was announced, I think the collective and myself included were just a little bit not shocked, but a little bit surprised that would be the call for this series. And I mean, within the first 10 seconds, when I eventually saw it, it was just a light bulb just exploded of, oh my, we're back. Like, it's back to the tunnel vision of the racehorse going down the track into the 70s. Here we go. And it was an immediate reaction.
yeah. I I would say definitely more than I would give it more than 10 minutes, but for me it was more than 10 minutes.
Hmm.
But I was like, I was more like, man, this is really different. This is
Hmm.
different. It looked good. Don't get me wrong, but it was totally out of left field.
Way different.
Him walking down these alleys in this town. I had no idea what to expect.
Hmm.
So I think that when the creators put this together, what was the guy's name? Gilroy? Was
Yeah,
it Tom
Tony Gilroy. Yeah, I think his brother wrote part of the script. But yeah, I mean, Tony's always had an immaculate eye for detail, and you feel it right away. I mean, I'm a big Blade Runner fan, so I had watched the sequel of Blade Runner about 2 nights prior before Andor's release. So the
Not for the first
first
time.
no, like for the
Okay.
90th time. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
I
More
love
like
the sequel. Yeah, it's fantastic. So I already had it on the mind, and the first shot of Andor walking down the dock to get to in the scene. So immediately I'm thinking, oh, this feels a little like Blade Runner. This is interesting. And it was
Yes.
within the first moment when Andor makes the decision, when Cassie makes the decision to kill the guards. I leaned up into my seat. I was like, "We are into different territory now. This is
Yep.
this show has got me hooked. I don't. This
Yep.
is a different feeling." So it was immediate. Something clicked.
The setup. The
Yeah.
setup was unexpected.
Yeah,
Was unexpected.
absolutely.
And it sent him on a trajectory that there was no turning back.
Mm-hmm.
There's no turning back from.
Yeah.
And it put us viewers on a course that typically you kind of know where the story's going. Even in the Mandalorian, the first season he's riding this thing and it's moving slow, so everything was at a slow pace. This
Sure.
beast he's riding,
Sure.
So and especially interaction with the Jawas and stuff. It was a slow drip, but this was, even though it was a slow drip,
Mm-hmm.
but the beginning, first episode was such a shocker and an introduction to a part of the Star Wars universe that we've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
It took us into places that we never see stuff like that. Yeah, it was more like Blade Runner. It was more like some other science fiction, The Expanse or something, on a different world. And
Yeah.
it's all of these normal people.
Yeah.
So job well done for those guys. It was nice. But continue, please.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you absolutely nailed it there. It was, I think, the perspective of the normal everyday individual. We've seen that sometimes before, but the way that it was just described, the way it was portrayed, and I come back to that word a lot, and I think I used perspective a couple times in my video, because there, throughout this show and the way that Tony shoots a lot of his scenes, he is very big on giving you a different physical perspective, sure, but in terms of your senses and what you're seeing and hearing and thinking about, what is he showing you that he's not showing you? So, like, there's a moment where a chase ensues. Imperial bad guys are after Cassian in the early parts of the show on Ferrix, and some hijinks ensue, and one of them gets killed off screen. And instead of showing a ship crashing or something, it shows the perspective of the reaction of the people, and then pans over and shows the aftermath as it's happening. And it's just, there are small moments in the show where things happen the way you'd expect. You're like, I expect this person to lose, this person to win. But the way that you get there, the journey that they take you on to that point, everything's concluded. You know how it's going to go down, but the way that they build nuance into the ceiling is what really just, it blew my mind in terms of storytelling, and also like, oh, Star Wars can do this too. This is possible for this IP. This is amazing. So it was mind blowing to me.
Yes. The character development was just, every episode I'm on the wire in subspace talking to my people saying, oh my goodness, another A+, I'm laid out, man. You know, I know some people, I call them new people really, because maybe, they're just not hardwired this way, but the way Disney releases an episode every week, to me, that's good, because it's impossible to sit and watch hours worth of film at a time. It's impossible. So I appreciate it, even if it's less than an hour. That's okay, because it just coincides with that break that I give myself in the evening, after dinner or during dinner, where I could sit down and watch a movie while I'm, having some grub, and just wind down time. So I think it's done very well. It's purposely done, in my opinion. So I'm very pleased the way the format streaming works out, and I hope they continue to do it that way.
Yeah.
So can we take a look at a clip? I think we've got a clip here that you actually have
absolutely
sent us. So let's see, Andor.
What Andor does that so many interpretations fail to do is texturize the world of Star Wars. Rather than the glossy, coloring book nature of its counterparts, Star Wars here exists graphically, entirely three-dimensional and oozing of cohesive identities. Each new environment and perspective and discovery is given air to be taken in the same way it would in real life, with quiet contemplation and appreciation. Layered atop of all this silence is a story about the costs of climbing.
Wow. It didn't play the way I wanted it to play, but
it's totally fine.
But that was, that's truly amazing. I'm gonna bring up a couple things here so we can talk more about these clips. Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
But go ahead. What you were saying. Let me mention this, okay? Which I said why Andor, but you talk so well about it and have described it in ways that would come out of an MIT course.
Thank you.
Okay, so you
thank
popped up on, Google, the YouTube algorithm said,
Mhm.
Troy, you need to see this. It served it to me. I was like, oh, what's that? Because I like to listen to soundtracks, and
Sure.
I enjoy rewatching clips, that are scattered all over YouTube.
Right.
And yours popped up, and I'm listening. I'm like, I wonder if I invite this guy to the festival, would he contribute, or what would come out of this? Because I had no idea. Because we've asked people in the past,
Sure.
and we've had very little response. So the one person that did a significant contribution was a guy named Kyle Sullivan, who did an analysis on Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, best villain, the best villain. And that caught our eye. And we're talking a long time ago, because we're talking, you're in year 10. Kyle Sullivan, I think, was year 3.
Wow.
So we're talking quite a few years back.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 years. And, so well appreciated. An award was created. He actually won the Europa Award for that, and delivered another analysis during the festival.
You got a good one there.
Yeah. He was recognized twice in 2 years, I think. Him and his better half. So let me bring this up here.
Sure.
Do you think Andor is part of Catalyst, the book Catalyst?
That is.
I think so, but I'm curious.
I would say I don't want to say no, because I think their parallels are much more. What like cross pollination is a lot of times they use as a marketing term for getting people. I think that Andor has a lot of cross pollination with the book, far more than people might think originally. Granted, again, Andor works in a different medium, and there are differences when it comes to nuances of the description, because Andor did feel somewhat like a period piece, granted, with everything that's happening in the world now, and that was another aspect of kind of the political, geopolitical sphere of Andor. But it's not very far off, and when it's funny when you brought that up a little bit earlier, and again, another light bulb. It is much similar in that regard than I think many would expect, and the parallels that I think you can draw from Andor do fit in that box. I think that's actually a very fair comparison for sure. The nuances exist just inherently in terms of Andor does tackle some moral grays that maybe you won't find in the book, but yeah, I think you're pretty spot on with that. And that's credit to art when it hits that resonance pattern that a lot of different subtext can start hitting as well. That is the brilliance of this show.
Right. For me, not to push back on it, but I read, I did the audiobook for Catalyst because I was driving a lot, to my long commutes. I really like to experience, audiobooks when I'm driving.
Sure.
And I listened to Catalyst twice. And to me, Andor is a chunk out of Catalyst.
That's a good way to
put it.
Yeah.
Which also takes place during Rogue One. Rogue One also takes place during when Catalyst is set. But Catalyst is somewhere about a 20-year timeline, if I'm right.
I believe, it's within like the 15 to 20 years of memory serves. Yeah.
Yeah. It took the Empire about 15 to 20 years to make the first Death Star.
Yep.
And they had all kind of issues that were going on, and they were scattered, because it gives you more of a in-depth introduction or a deep dive into the Empire's expanse, worlds, different things that had to be done. Learn about Gerso. What's his first name again?
Galen.
Jin's
father. Yes.
Father. Galen. We learn about Galen Erso. He was just trying to build a power supply for for this battle station. And by using kyber crystal, because he said, hey, we could get all this energy from kyber crystals.
Right.
and he started, using it, but he was much better at the research than anybody else, because in the Catalyst story, other Imperial scientists were trying to do his work, and I think they blew up a whole planet. And they didn't blow up the planet, but it was such a large disaster that it affected the planet, and the people that were living on the planet, including the scientists, were begging the Empire to hurry up to get them off the planet because it was just, a mess.
The ecological disaster was just massive.
But Andor, what they've done for us. Look at the detail. Look at this absolute detail.
Yeah.
Inside the TIE fighter, inside this TIE fighter here, and look at it. He's on the knob. Any idea what that knob does?
From what I know, a lot of the knobs are either tracking to get, like, if they're fighting an X-wing, a lot of the knobs are either to track the movement of the X-wing. It's kind of like a telescope when you have to change the magnification on a telescope to get something into view. I believe that's what it is as well. It's like kind of tuning the tracking, whether the beacon for your fire or to keep pace as you're honing in on it. I believe it's similar there to, like, keep it in perspective.
Right, because I know in the very first one, Darth Vader was switching.
He was messing with the knob.
He was doing a lot of knobs, switching those knobs and so forth. And every time we see these TIE fighters, they're working these knobs.
Every knob, man.
And if I remember, there was Aldhani, right? Mm-hmm. When they were on Aldhani, and they had the air squadron from the other side of some other part of the planet. There was an air base there, and they had the guys go down the ladders into the TIE fighters, and they also, as they flew out, they had to adjust. They were turning on all the switches and getting the power going on ion drive ships. To be honest, ion drive is not going to work in an atmosphere.
No. And that's why the TIE fighters never win, because the Empire refuses to figure out the atmosphere of the planets they want to invade. They'll never get it figured out, man.
But what's this device here? This was a plot piece.
Yeah, so this was, and real quick note, I mean, I love this show. I believe that's an old Polaroid, but I love when the show used a lot of the old, like, prop tricks they would use in the 70s and 80s for movies, for sci-fi movies. Similar thing here. They basically repurposed an old Polaroid and put a screen on it, and it just looks great. From what I remember, this was... they were trying to use this to track their ascent through the atmosphere and basically track it along as the eye was going by. So Nemec was using this to give course for the ship that Cassian and the crew were in after their heist. And I believe the yellow line you see is just the path they've charted they need to follow to get out of the eye and avoid the Empire.
Climb. He would say, climb.
Climb. Yep.
Climb.
Yep.
I really like Nemec.
I was shocked when he met his demise.
shocked. I have a big problem with killing off good characters.
I know
they do it because they're these data scientists that are, modeling appreciation and response and keenness and focus on films.
Sure.
But I think it's it's like you've got this $100 million project, and characters are worth a certain amount of million on that project. So when you cut off that character, you're kind of trimming off an audience that contributes to that $100 million revenue.
Sure.
I think one of the best examples of that was Star Trek Discovery, first or second episode, when they killed the captain. When they wiped her out. I'm like, why'd you do that? She was a great character. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Of course, they eventually brought her back as somebody else.
You got to.
Team, But they're just really, I could see Kemek having a series or being part of another series. There's just so much more that could be added. For God's sakes, we've got 5 years to go before he ends up getting, vaporized in the end.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I agree. And if something happens to, like, Luthen or anybody else who I've very quickly become fond of, I'll be very upset because I love the characters in this show.
Well, Andor's only getting 2 seasons, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the next season's the last one. So I mean,
I
and
mean,
they,
that's a big mistake. Why?
you know, so originally, I think when they announced that it was, they announced they wanted it to be, I think, like 5 seasons. And Tony actually came out and he said, "I only have 2 seasons of a story that I want to tell before Rogue One starts." So normally, I'd be like scared, like scratching my beard, like, oh no, Troy, like we're leaving so much on the table here. But if Tony says he only has 2 seasons he wants to tell, given just what he gave us, I kind of trust him with the
Tony,
second one.
Tony,
He's got to have it figured out. I'm just saying.
listen, Tony, listen, listen, man. No, you do you see this? Do you see this?
It's a gorgeous shot.
This right here. Okay.
Gorgeous.
Yes.
It's gorgeous. This whole series about this right here. Just give us that, right there. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there are entire legions. I think the 501st Legion,
Mm-hmm.
which is the cosplay,
Yep.
Star Wars appreciation group, where they build their own costumes and everything, manufacture everything.
Mm-hmm.
They must be in absolute awe
Yeah.
at the beauty of all these Imperial sets.
Yeah.
That are
They're
produced.
gorgeous. Yeah.
Okay.
And I love that. I love that they put so much attention into the biggest empire that's ever existed. And one of the biggest in any science fiction. Like, this is how they should look. This is the presence you give them. It's fantastic. It's wonderful.
You just sit there and you're just salivating.
Yeah.
This is just beautiful. Look at the stormtroopers. They got little stormtroopers over there.
Yeah, the attention to detail is absurd in this show. It's just the Empire feels like Empire, clean slates, very dull color palette. The Rebels feel like Rebels, green sceneries, backgrounds that are very derelict and lacking of internal structure. Like, there's so much. Everything is paid attention to, which makes the wait for season 2 and the wishes for more that much more difficult, because you want more from this universe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. So, well, let's move on.
Sure.
Holy smokes, let's move on. So, tell us about, what is challenging for you when you're producing these reviews, in particular for Andor. What was challenging about it? Because you went into an incredible length of detail. What was the length of the episode? Was about 15, 20 minutes long, wasn't it?
Yeah, if memory serves, I think it was about around 15 or so minutes.
Yeah.
Which is it's pretty high length for a lot of my stuff.
Yeah. So what's challenging for you in producing that? What was the tough part?
Really, I think that the most difficult part was finding a lot of the clips can be difficult just from a quantitative perspective for making videos sometimes, because the show's still coming out. You're trying to hunt down what's licensed and legally allowed to be on the internet and stuff like that. So that was a bit difficult, but finding the right words. Surprisingly, my favorite part of the video is actually the opening segment where I kind of give my brief take on the show. That came together rather quickly. I was a bit surprised. Of all the videos I've done, the opening part, which kind of, I think, got the ball rolling on the video, that came together over very quickly, which doesn't happen. I think that's credit to the show with how much it can kind of move you to say something. But when it came to describing the way the show evolved, what it kind of did for me, for the world, that was difficult, because I found myself sitting with a lot of thoughts and a lot of I want to say this and I want to say this, but you don't want to say too much to you bore somebody. But how do you take everything you felt over the last 12 episodes, and how do you say that in a way that's succinct, in a way that makes sense, and in a way that if somebody watches the show, they can watch this video and feel exactly what I'm sure we all felt for certain moments. I think the most difficult part was when I was coming down the end of the script. Am I saying exactly what I'm feeling and what I think I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
That was pretty difficult, but it started off really easy, and then it was like, oh, this is getting way harder the more I try to do this. So, but eventually it came together.
And this falls into the category of a faceless video.
Mm-hmm.
About how long did it take for you to put this together?
So the video took about, I want to say 2-ish months. It took around 2 months because most of that was dead time. For my job, I'm required to travel a lot when I'm working. So it came around when the show ended. I had started writing part of the script, and like the week after, when I wanted to start getting more into it and recording, I had to travel for work, and then right after that, I had another gig I had to go to. And then when I came back, it was about 2-3 weeks in. I got sick, so it was like things were building up, and I realized I'm not finishing the video. I need to get in there and finish it. So when I finally sat down, I think it helped that I was pretty exhausted physically and sick wise. I was pretty exhausted, so I just turned off all the noise, just typed for a day. It took a couple days to put the script together in total. To edit it, it took a couple more days, but to kind of form all the thoughts, most of the time was forming the ideas of what I wanted to convey. That took about 2 months, and then when I eventually got around to editing it, it went in, and boom, it just
yeah. And you know, it takes a long time to truly craft something of this caliber. The impressive detail. Just so you know, when we played it at the festival, you could hear the you know, people just saying
reaction.
Their reactions with your critique. They were responding to your critique. You know how articulate you were in critiquing an artistic piece so well. They were like, "Oh, this is great! This is great!" And it was a surprise. They were not expecting it.
I'm glad it went over that well. I didn't go in like hoping that it was that way. It was like, I was like, when I was done with the video, I felt very much, I have exhausted everything I think I can feel about this in the most clearest and not overt, obtuse way. And I was happy that I was like, at the end of the day, I feel like this is exactly how I feel about the show, and that's good enough for me. So I'm glad that it went over that well with so many people. I'm like, I want people to like the show. I really do. So.
I don't have a time, like a volume stamp of when I first saw the video. There was maybe 100,000 views, but you've got over 500,000 views.
Yeah, it really took, I did not expect, it took off pretty quickly. Sometimes I've been doing YouTube for a while, and sometimes you get like, you know, I've had a video in the past that the first day it exploded. And once you know, when it hits a certain trajectory around like the first hour, you know, based off of metrics and numbers and the way the algorithm really works on YouTube. I've had a video that was like the first hour I got like 2,000 views, and then in the first 6 hours it was at like 20K. And in your mind you're like, okay, this is going to start going somewhere. We'll see what tomorrow looks like. But Andor was similar. It did pretty well. I put it out on social media, and my friends were really nice about it. But around the first like hour or so, it was closing in on 100. I was like, this is really great. Just standard wise, I got 100 views. First hour, I got 100, and I was like, I was cheering. I'm like, oof.
Yeah, because when I saw it, it was relatively new.
Yeah.
It was relatively new, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a little less, but it was relatively new when I first saw this, because that was my first film ever that I saw that you produced. First review.
It really took off.
So how has the reception been overall?
The reception to it's been, I mean, overwhelmingly positive, which has been. It's been like, obviously it's really humbling, and I'm really appreciative that so many people more really just resonated with the show to where they connected with that. Because the amount of comments, and I've gotten emails from people, because I have my business email on my YouTube channel. The amount of people who've emailed me and said, I was, you know, I grew up in the 70s and I got to see the original trilogy, and they never felt that again until they saw Andor. And the amount of people who were like, I'm in my 50s and 60s, and this is it made me feel good as a like 20-something-year-old, because I'm like, we're connecting on the one thing that we both felt in the 70s. Obviously I saw them as a kid, but like it was so cool seeing so many older generations connect with the video. And the demographic on that video, normally it's like teens, 20s, 30s. This one's like 50s and 60s, and I'm like,
really?
Wow. Yeah,
really?
It's like so many people from different ages just connecting with Andor, and it was mind-blowing to me. It really was.
I'm not going to do another sponsor drop, but it seemed like it went into the AARP Discord. And they're like, oh,
I mean, if they want to send you a sponsor, let's go for it, Troy. All right, take the sponsorship. I'll help you with that.
No, but I can imagine some of them saying, man, you just gave me an extra 10 years watching that. I love it. I love it. No, that's awesome. So, but were there any bad apples? People that don't?
Sure. Yeah, you know, there are a couple that, like, you know, you're going to get the odds who don't like the show, and I encourage I'll interact with them sometimes. A lot of times, look, there are movies and shows or something that I'll make a video on that not a lot of people like. A lot of people didn't resonate with Andor. They wanted the Force and lightsabers and stuff. And
Yeah.
I'll tell them in my comments, hey, that's the cool thing about Star Wars is that like there are so many different things you can enjoy. If Andor's not your cup of tea, that's totally cool. The one thing though, yeah, there are sometimes people who would make claims about the show or stuff and say like it's not that great, and I would have to push back and be like, fair opinion, but like if we're talking like in terms of quality and craftsmanship, there are things here that are just worth objectively saying are great. But
Yeah, the
but
bar
yeah,
is the
yeah,
bar
like
is so
you
high.
can dislike the show, but realize that the production value is insane on this one. But yeah, I mean, you're gonna get the odd ones there and there. Totally cool with it, and I'm just glad people were having a discussion, because even when they're like, we don't like the show, somebody would say, well, if you don't like it, what do you like? And then they'd start talking about Star Wars, and immediately get more people talking about Star Wars. And I'm like, I've done my job. You're talking about it. That's fine. So it's good.
And it raised the bar so high. Okay, the bar's been raised so high that Disney had dismantled that $400,000 weekend trip.
It
You know.
really did. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. Goodness.
And I didn't get to go. I'm so upset.
You might have saved yourself a lot of money by not going to that thing, because I've heard mixed things about it. So
Oh man,
you never know.
all they have to do is just take all of these sets and just set them up
Just keep the sets.
outside somewhere and rent people costumes to run around in. And
Yeah. They
them a
could
clean
rent
fee,
out
they
the
spoil
field of Aldani. They could rent out a mountain on Aldani with nothing around, and I'd go. I'd just go on camp for a week. Like, I'd just put me out there with a campfire and like a guitar, and I'm like, okay, I'm fine.
You
I'll
hear
have
that?
fun here.
You hear that, Bob? Bob, you
Yeah,
hear
Disney.
that? Okay?
I'll give you my money. Just
Bob
let me go
Iger.
to Aldani.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's gold.
It's that easy.
Itself. It's
I'm that gullible. Just let me go. I'll have fun. It's fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So in your remark you mentioned about high production
Mhm.
cost. I think, and I could be wrong, but the real sets that are used, I think, brings the production value down
Mm.
because they don't have to invest as much into all the visual effects that bring the cost way up.
Sure.
Like a
Yeah.
lot of the scenes, like the scene we were previously speaking about
Mm-hmm.
with the Imperial on that Imperial base. I guess that was Coruscant. Was that Coruscant where they were?
On the Imperial base, they were on Coruscant.
That
Yeah.
was on Coruscant.
The headquarters
So-
of the Empire was right in the
Right.
city. Yep.
Right. And that, is a real set, but it has VFX all around it.
Yep.
All around it. And it's so, and it could have actually been multiple
Mhm.
sets that are just, combined together, fused in there together. Who knows?
Yeah.
But, I think something like that cost a lot more to produce than when they were, in that valley in the mountains running around with those sets.
Yeah.
Just, put some visual effects. You can just put something over there and that's it.
Yeah.
Unless they built these physical sets where they're physically walking on or climbing
Mhm.
on, but they're not going to have to produce the entire thing. They can get by with just part of it.
Exactly. They did that with Ferrix. They built a set and they used it for every time they were in location. And
Right.
people don't realize that like it's not just the legality of principal photography when these developers and these producers are going to scout out areas to film. It's not just trying to clear it with the nation you're filming in or whatever area you're going to, but it's the cost of transferring all that equipment, the people out there, all that stuff. So
Yeah, Ferrix.
yeah, I mean when they had to shoot, they spent the money there, but they built the Imperial set, they built Ferrix, and that's about it. Like, I mean, and the prison system, but those like 3 sets, that's all really that exists in the show. And that's just credit to the ingenuity of these production designers and the stage designers who could get those sets to work for an entire season. It's mind blowing.
Ferrix was shot in England also,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And I believe they were scouting. I think they were scouting either in the Netherlands or somewhere in Sweden for either next season or when they were trying to shoot on Aldani with a lot of the rebel scenes. And I believe next season they had to like push back one of their locations because they couldn't get the legal clear for it. But yeah, it's like they're shooting all over the world, and they wanted to use, when they had to, they wanted to use a real location because they're like, if we're going to spend the money, let's do it on the real thing and let's keep the sets as they are, which was a great idea.
I'm trying to see the exact location because I remember hearing someone talk about the Ferrix, which it's a real village that was built
Mm-hmm.
different streets, layers
Yeah.
and everything. So it gave it a real, it was since it's a real location,
Mm-hmm.
it's so much easier to produce there. I
Yeah.
don't remember I remember reading somewhere. It's somewhere in England.
It's yeah, they apparently they filmed in northern Scotland and England, and they built a set around the former quarry of Buckinghamshire. So they used like similar towns in Scotland, and then they would just build the sets they needed around it, do a little bit of CGI magic, and boom, you got a set, and that's all you need, which is great.
That's amazing. So let's go into another direction
Sure.
here. Why Star Wars and not Star Trek?
That is a really loaded question because my father is a big Star Trek fan, and I mean I grew up watching not only did I grow up watching some of the original series, but when I would come home from college every now and then, I mean there were reruns on public television that run for the original series, and I would come home, my dad's watching it, so I mean I lived in that, but I think I might have to blame the prequels on this one because I grew up with the original trilogy for Star Wars on VHS. Those still existed back in the day. And when the prequel trilogy came out, I was a young kid, so I already knew what the originals were. The prequels were coming out when I was around 5 or 6. So that was like my big thing. It was like, this is Star Wars for us. And I got into Star Trek a little bit from the original series as I got older because I would watch it with my dad. I was a big fan of the original series, Spock and Kirk and Scotty. But I never quite as a child got into it the way my dad did when he was growing up watching it on TV. But as I've gotten older, I've gone back to look at Star Trek in a different light because as a kid, you're like Star Wars, Star Trek, that's the rivalry. But as an adult, I'm like, science fiction's great, so why have rivalries? Let's watch both. So I'm trying to go back and I'm going to start Picard this weekend. I've written down like I'm going to start watching Picard. I've heard good things about season 3. Excited, but
Oh yeah.
original series. I watched Wrath of Khan with my dad when I was a kid. I thought that was great. Like I was picking a little bit here and there, but I never quite got into it as I want to. So
Right. Yeah. Well, that's good. The new season of what is it? The new series called Strange New Worlds.
mm-hmm.
It's pretty darn close to the original series.
Okay, I'll keep it on the list.
For me, it's as good. It's as good as the original series. And one of the reasons that adds to it is they put in effort to make it retro.
Nice. I like
Right.
that. I love that. I'm so
To
huge.
give it a retro feel. But they also have pretty good character development. They're, it's a nice mixed bag of characters. The way the Next Generation was, or Enterprise, I think they've done a very, very good job with this, and I hope they drag it out, several seasons. I really do, because it can carry the
Good.
franchise. It's the best thing I think they've done in a long time. But don't get me wrong, season 3 Picard is good.
I've heard very good things about it. I know season 1 was on the up and up. Season 2 wavered, but people were saying season 3 is right back on track, and that got me excited.
Yeah, it absolutely. And it's bittersweet because Patrick Stewart, probably his last time, making movies or films.
Sure.
But he did a really good job. I'm so happy he's so dedicated to the franchise that he's willing to do it. Because some people, they don't want to be bothered anymore. They go off and make, they're not even making, fiction. They're making, whatever.
Sure.
So I'm pleased that Patrick Stewart really has put in. And if you're a Star Trek fan, Star Trek Vegas, I'm gonna bring. Star Trek Vegas is the ultimate, destination for running into all of these fans. Don't get me wrong. The Star Trek Museum in Ticonderoga, New York, which is probably closer to you,
that is pretty close. Yeah,
it's worth a visit. I've been there. I worked on a couple of the sets there. Even been in front of the camera as a role in one of the Star Trek episodes.
Cool.
Yeah, Mind Sifter. It was called Star Trek Mind Sifter. Very, very good. That's with James Cawley's productions. But he runs the museum there, which is Star Trek sets, and they're perfect to the exact replica.
Wow.
They're exact replicas to the T.
Wow.
And occasionally you get to meet some of the characters from Star Trek.
That's cool.
William Shatner goes several times a year, and that's the closest you will get to William Shatner. It's worth it. I'm
That's
trying to
really
get.
cool.
I'm hoping I can get there real soon.
That's really cool. I'll have to take my dad there. I know he'd love it.
Oh yeah, he'd
yeah.
flip. He'd
Oh
flip.
yeah.
It's a great destination, good people and all up there. Anyway,
Nice.
real quick. So,
Mhm.
have you had the opportunity to go to any of the Star Wars sets?
From memory, I haven't. I've been by when I was working over in Burbank in California recently, and we drove past the Warner Brothers lot, and across from the Warner Brothers lot is where they film a lot of the Disney. They have like I think the volume, and they have some of the Disney sets. So I've been in proximity to them, but I've never been lucky enough to like go inside the Millennium Falcon or be anywhere really on some of the sets. I would love to, obviously, but so close, but so far.
Okay, so here's a fun one here.
Sure.
What are your top 3 Star Wars characters and why?
You just had to ask the most difficult question at the very end, didn't you? Oh man, of course you did. I don't know if I'll put them in order, but one of the ones that stands out, obviously, Luke Skywalker, classic. I was actually working at Comic-Con for doing some press stuff and some video content stuff in 2018, and there was a group of stormtroopers walking by, and they looked like really well-made armor, like something you wouldn't really see from high-end cosplays. They walked by, and they had this unique look to them that was only specific to them. And I remember saying, like, that's so sick. And I waved to them, and I put out my hand, fist bump. And I was like, that's just a different look. Thought nothing of it. Turns out it's Mark Hamill walking around the venue disguised and he posts on Twitter, if you saw me in the venue today, I was wearing this. And I was like, I lost my mind. I was losing. So he immediately skyrockets up to the top. Luke Skywalker, just classic hero. Love the battle of good of leaning into gray areas when you need to, pulling back, the differences there, the nuances. Love it. Of course, his father, there is no question, the greatest, in my opinion, cinema villain of all time, Darth Vader. Like, I think Anakin's story is really great. I think it got fleshed out even better. I love what Vader. I love how they've used Vader. I think he's just classic chef's kiss. One of Rogue One ending, unbeatable, wonderful. And I'm going to keep it old school, really. I love Han Solo because I grew up watching Harrison Ford in Star Wars, and then my mom showed me Indiana Jones. So, like, for me, that was the thing. I was like, Harrison Ford, I'm a fan, loved him, and watching over the years as I've gotten older, I have just grown to appreciate his performance as Han Solo even more. The original bounty hunter, the original, like, scruffy guy, he's unbeatable, man. Like, the original cast is so good. They're unbeatable. I love them. They're great.
Yeah, they Harrison Ford was so good that they actually made another franchise for him. I think they called it Indiana Jones.
Why don't you get this secondary franchise? Yeah,
You
exactly.
can do the same thing you want and fight these guys. They're like the Empire a little bit, you know?
Yeah, it's the same people, just a little bit back down to earth. That's it. Yeah, just the same ones. I mean, he is so good. And then, of course, he's in Blade Runner, and just anytime I see him, I'm happy. I'm like, oh, take my money.
You know what? You just mentioned something. That's called a trifecta.
Mm.
Very few actors ever get such an opportunity.
Yeah.
He plays in Star Wars. A couple of years in between Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, he plays Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Does Empire. In that same period of time, he does Indiana Jones.
I mean, that run is unbelievable.
Okay.
You're never going to see that again. It's unreal.
Very few cast members do that. Very few. At least with the returns. Okay, with the returns. Because remember, all of those films were absolute worldwide blockbusters.
Yep.
And still are to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So someone who did similar but did not have nowhere near the blockbuster run, and that's Vin Diesel.
Mm-hmm.
Vin Diesel, if you remember Pitch Black.
Yeah.
Do you remember Boiler Room?
Oh, I do remember Boiler Room. Oh my goodness, that is like, of course Vin Diesel had one of the Trinities. Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yes, he did. Because Pitch Black and Boiler Room were in the theaters. I'm almost certain the same time.
That's right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay,
Wow.
and then he did something else. Was it what was?
I don't think
Was did X happen? Not X.
I don't
Fast and
think was it
Furious.
Fast. I don't know if was it Fast. I don't think Chronicles of Riddick was out at that time,
No,
but
Chronicles of Riddick
that was much
happened.
later.
And
Was
then
it
you got
before?
Fast
Okay.
and Furious.
Yeah, I think it was it was either Riddick or Fast, but it was right after he had made those two,
Yeah,
and he
yeah,
just jumped into those franchises, Fast for
yeah.
better and worse, and
It was
Riddick.
it was a film called Triple X.
I remember that. Yes, 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 yes.
Triple
Yeah,
X.
yeah.
So he was trying, and I think him and The Rock were, they were competing. There
Kind
were
of
a lot
side
of
by
heads
side.
butting. There were heads
Yeah,
butting. There were heads
yeah.
butting because Dwayne Johnson, right? The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
He's very competitive. He
Mm-hmm.
smiles at everything, but man,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
he's gonna shake
he's
things up. No,
yeah.
he's ruthless. He's ruthless.
And I mean, speaking of that, like the one who's had, I think, one of the best performances, Dave Bautista is a phenomenal actor. I mean, I would love to get him in Star Wars at some aspect. I don't know what he'd play, but it's on the Blade Runner trend there. I mean, of the wrestlers who have
In
made the
Star
commitment
Wars,
to acting,
in Star Wars.
I would love for him to get into Star Wars in some aspect. I think he's got a really good dramatic presence when he tries to be very dramatic. In Blade Runner in the sequel, he's phenomenal. And like the 3-4 minutes he's in the film, he's great. I'd love to see more of him.
He was in a film at our festival. It was a slasher film.
Mm.
It was a slasher cult film someone produced, and they got, what's the guy's name from Machete? Danny Trejo.
Oh, Danny, Danny Trejo. Yeah.
Him and Dave Bautista are in a role.
Oh, that's a cast. Oh my goodness.
When I saw that, I said, "Okay, the film's in. This is excellent." And we couldn't get them to come to the festival, but we were one of the few festivals that played the film,
That's awesome.
and it's a cult classic. I don't think you can easily see it. You might be able by now, but you couldn't see it. People were going crazy trying to get access to that film.
Sure.
But Dave Bautista has, for a long time, tried to get different roles than the roles that he plays currently. Like his role with Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't get me wrong, it's funny, it's really entertaining, it's cool and all of that. But I think he would rather play more of Blade Runner style.
Yeah, he's a very good serious actor, and he said like he wants to do more serious stuff. And his Blade Runner performance was amazing. Really good.
I think that was better than the original.
Me too. I am 100% with you on that. Yeah. I mean, what Denis Villeneuve did was unbelievable.
Yeah, the deep dive they did, the deep dive going into a lot of the background history, trying to fuse it together, and us getting up close with the androids. We didn't see that with the original.
Yeah.
And the mere fact that there was a considerable amount of backstory, to me, it felt like the androids were preparing for something to take place on Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I think that they could make another one, and it would be something like I don't know, World War Z or something, where the androids actually land on Earth, come back to Earth, and I don't know what they would do. Free the other androids? I don't know.
Sure.
But there was definitely a lot of discourse going on, and I think under in the sublayers, when that, I don't know if it was an AI or just a machine on the wall, when it was interrogating the lead cast member.
Yeah, Officer K, when it's asking him every debriefing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of like programming him, making him say things to reprogram him.
Yeah.
And at one point he's like, "You're way off your baseline."
Yep.
But they were being treated. They're being treated they're not being treated very well. Only people like him, androids like him, were being treated well. Others were, I think, were being treated more subhuman.
Right.
And the female character that he eventually fights in the end, I think that they were actually part of this resentment that wanted to see change. I think so. I think
I
that
agree with you 100%. Yeah.
the writing and what they showed us was purposely done. Purposefully.
Yeah, absolutely. It was meticulously done. It was done for a reason. It was great. Yeah.
So we've covered a lot today.
We've jumped from different IPs all the way around. I love it.
Is there anything else that you would like to add, Sean?
Big thank you to obviously for you for reaching out in the first place. I got the email that night. I got super late, and I just had a long day, so I was like, I'll read this tomorrow. I'm not sure what it says. I read the morning, and I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. So thank you for reaching out in the first place. For thank you to the Google algorithm for sending Troy my video. I whoever's in charge of that, thank you. But no, I think what Miami Film Festival's done is phenomenal. You guys have such an awesome reach and a pulse on the scientific science fiction community that I think is necessary, specifically now, because with all these great shows, it takes something to funnel it kind of down to a baseline. So I'm just appreciative to be here, and I'm a big fan. This has been a really, really awesome experience. So thank you.
Thanks so much, man. Those are kind words, and you've done a fantastic job, and we hope to see more of your work.
Yeah,
and, one day make it out to the festival.
Oh, I would love it. I'll bring Dave Bautista with me. You know what? I'll call him up. We'll ride through together.
All right, awesome. Okay, folks, we'll stay tuned for future news, and we'll be back.
Another winter day, another gray reminder that what used to be has gone away. It's really hard to say how long we have to live with our insanity. We have to pay for all we use. We never think before we light the fuse. Look up, look up, look up, the sky is falling. Look up, there's something that you have to do. Before you try to go outside to take in the view, look up because the sky could fall on you. Another restless night, the wind is howling through the
It is true that you should wear little to no makeup for on-camera auditions. I would say that the camera picks up everything. So the reason why you should have a more understated look is because we want to see you. We don't want to see the makeup covering you up. And it's fine to wear light or highlight certain things, but someone who comes in with way too much makeup, the camera is going to pick up every single thing, especially these 4K cameras now. Some of them now are 6K. So we definitely do not want to have every eyelash pronounced that's a little, it'll pick it up. If your eyelash is one way or another way because of the mascara and the way that you put it, the camera is going to pick that up. And I know it's kind of ridiculous, right? Because you're acting there for the role, and if the role necessitates a certain amount of makeup, in general, just pat yourself with a little bit of powder, very light makeup if you need to wear any at all, and allow you to illuminate from within.